Ah, Christmas. A time of worn-out songs, disappointing crackers, and of course, Christmas movies. Hello, I'm Ashley Miller, and welcome to Opinions from the Armchair. To me, Christmas movies and Christmas specials have always been a cherished part of the holiday. And the king of the Christmas movies has always been that immortal classic by Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol. Indeed, as I speak from the year 2015, this book has been adapted for the silver screen no less than 22 times, each with their own variation. But how do all these cinematic takes on this timeless tale measure up? Well, to answer that question, I am starting my own Christmas special, a 3-episode examination of 2 Christmas Carol films, during which I will examine how well they stand up on their own merits, how they compare to the book, and each other. I am rather hoping this will become another beloved holiday tradition. And now, I invite you to relax, charge your glasses with eggnog or mulled wine as we begin our merry marathon. The first ever Opinions from the Armchair Christmas Carol Christmas Special. Jim Henson was dead, to begin with. There can be no doubt whatsoever about that. But 2 years later, in 1990, a film he had an idea for was made and dedicated to his memory, along with that of his fellow puppeteer Richard Hunt. The Muppets Christmas Carol was my first introduction to the classic tale, and stars Michael Caine as Scrooge and the other roles played by various other characters from the franchise. Well, I may be a bit nostalgia blinded, but I think it's incredible. For one thing, it's got wonderful musical numbers. The tunes are catchy and stick with you, the lyrics ring through clear and true, and it's wonderfully choreographed. I mean, take a look.
Oh, there goes Mr. Humbug, there goes Mr. Grimm. If they gave a prize for being mean, the winner would be him.
'Tis a season to be jolly and joyous. With a burst of pleasure we feel it arrive. It's a season when the saints can employ us to spread the news about peace and to keep love alive.
Doomed Scrooge, you're doomed for all time. Your future is a horror story written by your crime.
It is the season of the heart, a special time of caring, the ways of love made clear. It is the season of the spirit, the message, if we hear it, is make it last all year.
It's also rich in the slapstick humour that the Muppets are famous for.
If you please, Mr. Scrooge, it's gotten colder. Any bookkeeping staff would like to have an extra shovel full of coal for the fire?
We can't do the bookkeeping. Yeah, all of our pens have turned to inksicles. Yeah, our assets are frozen.
How would the bookkeepers like to be suddenly
Unemployed!
This is my island in the sun. Hey, light the lamp, not the rat, light the lamp, not the rat.
My apologies.
Put me out, put me out. What? Ow! Oh, at least I landed on something soft. And hot. Hot.
And yet, despite all that extra stuff, it still stays very loyal to the book. This isn't some holiday cash grab, a franchise playing on its own reputation, or studio execs who are yet again milking this well-known tale, these people really wanted to tell a story, and to do it well. I love the way they introduce Scrooge. They really make him look intimidating and forbidding. And the fact that throughout this first number you never actually see his face at first makes him seem even more scary.
Then all that work is paying off, 'cause Scrooge is getting worse.
Every day, in every way, Scrooge is getting worse.
To me, Michael Caine as Scrooge is what Errol Flynn was to Robin Hood, what Robert Newton was to Long John Silver, an actor who played the role so well, so definitively, that he became a yardstick by which all others are measured. I mean, he plays the part so perfectly. Now, I respect an actor who is able not only to portray different emotions, but entirely different characters and personalities. And I think Michael Caine proves in this movie that he can do just that. Unlike some people. As Scrooge begins his character arc, Michael Caine plays each part perfectly. You can feel the emotions coming off of him every step of the way. The coldness,
Humbug.
the sorrow,
Spirit, show me no more. Why do you delight in torturing me?
the contrition,
Oh, please, Spirit, no. Hear me, I'm not the man I was.
and the joy.
Stop and look around you. The glory that you see is born again each day. Don't let it slip away. How precious life can be.
And he sings! Incidentally, a few years ago I recognised Michael Caine playing Captain Nemo in a made-for-TV production of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I think that was the first time I recognised him in something since the Muppet Christmas Carol. I remember being amazed by how much shorter he looked. I honestly don't know if it's because he's maybe shrunk with age, or, as Scrooge, all his co-stars were only 4 feet tall. Interestingly, in this scene...
Who is this?
It's Mr. Applegate, sir. He's here to speak to you about his mortgage.
Please, Mr. Scrooge, I know you're very angry about this, and I didn't mean to fall behind in the payment. Lord
I
knows,
think
being
that's a
Christmas
big
and all.
advantage
Oh,
in
please
telling
don't
the
shout at me,
story.
sir. That, and of
It
course,
really
the
conveys the
lungs are
feeling
broke.
of
The
Scrooge
doctor
being
takes
this
his share,
big,
don't
bad
he? I
moneylender
need to yell and scream,
with the
and
little
you're
guys
right,
at his
and you're
mercy.
good, because I'm bestowing you
Quite
on
literally,
Scrooge's blood
little
pride,
guys.
and that's the truth. Thank you for not shouting at me.
Another interesting feature, unique to this adaptation, is that they have the actual narrator as a character, a physical character in the film.
Hello! Welcome to the Muppet Christmas Carol. I am here to tell the story.
And I am here for the food.
My name is Charles Dickens.
And my name is Rizzo the Rat.
I love the way he has to physically follow Scrooge around in order to tell the story.
What are we doing?
Nothing.
What?
Oh, just hold on.
What?
Oh, watch out, Rizzo.
No!
How he keeps popping up when he's needed.
A moment later, Scrooge found himself standing on a city street, looking at a building he had not seen in years. Perhaps it was the spirit's own generous nature and his sympathy for all poor men that led them straight to the home of Scrooge's faithful clerk.
And interestingly, what he says when the ghost of Christmas yet to come turns up.
Oh, this is too scary. I don't think I want to see any more.
Oh, when you're right, you're right. You're on your own, folks. We'll meet you at the finale.
Yeah. Oh.
This is supposed to be a very somber and scary period in the story, and somehow it's enhanced by Gonzo's absence. Maybe it's because he's been accompanying us throughout the film, and suddenly we're left to follow Scrooge by ourselves. Or maybe, in this scene, the silence is more powerful than the explanation. You see, in the past and present scenes, Scrooge had the ghost to explain the situation. But in the future scenes, there are a lot of questions, but the faceless ghost never answers. There's something about it that makes it all the more mysterious and ominous. Bringing Gonzo and Rizzo along would have just subtracted from that. Well, on one hand, very little of Charles Dickens' original prose made it into the film, which I think is a shame because it's so colourful and poetic. Also, the story was abridged with many details and sections left out. But, on the other hand, in all fairness, any movie based on a book is an abridged version. They have to squeeze a book that can go on for hours into something that's only an hour and a half long. 2 hours at most. And as for the dialogue, well, this movie is meant for kids, and nice as the original prose was, kids might be hard-pressed to follow or understand what's being talked about. Although it may not be loyal to the exact words of the book, it is very loyal to the overall story, which is surprising considering most of the cast is a menagerie of 4-foot-tall felt creatures. Let's take a closer look.
In life, the Marleys had been business partners with a shrewd moneylender named Ebenezer Scrooge.
Now that was something the film added. Scrooge was not classified as a moneylender or a landlord in the book. But then again, in the book, it's never actually said what Scrooge does or what his business is. All we do know is that it involves an office and the handling of money, which is a vague description of just about any business there is. I think this is actually an improvement on the original story. Yes, I think that sometimes a movie gets 1 or 2 things better than the book. Not only do they clarify Scrooge's job, but I think it fits his character very well. Someone who has a lot of power over poor, downtrodden people. And this scene gives him a chance to further show his cold and callous nature.
Let us deal with the eviction notices for tomorrow, Mr. Cratchit.
Tomorrow's Christmas, sir.
Very well. You may gift wrap them.
One way they are loyal to the book is in their characterization of Scrooge. Unfortunately, quite a few portrayals of Ebenezer Scrooge are that of a cackling, money-grabbing miser who loves money.
My mind twirling, money piling up, I love it. Plus his 80% interest, compounded daily. Money, money, money.
This is a skewed image of Scrooge. What people need to remember is that Scrooge is not all about greed, but gain. Yes, he's all about making money, but it's not because of the love of money. Later on in the book, we meet the character Belle, the love of Scrooge's life, who tells him, "You fear the world too much. All your other hopes have merged into the hope of being beyond the chance of its sorry reproach. I have seen your nobler aspirations fall off one by one, until the master passion, gain, engrosses you. Have I not?" This is extremely important in the understanding of the character of Scrooge. He is a man who is aware of the hardship that poverty can bring, that it can strike anyone down at any time, and his obsession is gaining enough money to become poverty-proof. He doesn't get satisfaction from money itself, and he certainly doesn't pursue it so he can live a life of luxury. On the contrary, in the book, he lives in a small, cheap apartment and spends only enough to keep himself alive. That is the character of Scrooge, and that is how he is presented in the film. A man consumed by gain, not cartoonish greed. This is a misconception, a trap that many other filmmakers over the years have fallen into, either willingly or unwillingly. The Muppets Christmas Carol have risen above that, and I say kudos.
Scrooge made his way up the staircase, caring not a button for the darkness. Darkness was cheap, and Scrooge liked it.
Christmas is a very busy time for us, Mr. Cratchit. People preparing feasts, giving parties, spending the mortgage money on frivolities. One might say that December is the foreclosure season.
Harvest time for the moneylenders.
However, they did come close to crossing over with that last line and that smile. But interestingly, the Muppets have stayed true to the character of Scrooge and yet gone in another direction. In the book, Scrooge despises Christmas because he thinks it's foolish for people to be merry when they have nothing to be merry about. Scrooge himself points out that his clerk, Bob Cratchit, is merry at Christmas despite the fact he has a large family and has to support them on little pay. That line is left out of the Muppets Christmas Carol despite its importance. Instead, the Muppets give us a Scrooge who sees Christmas as a waste of time, money and resources.
Come on, Ebenezer. Last coach is sleeping. Come on, he never goes home for Christmas. Who cares about stupid old Christmas?
I was often alone. More time for reading and study. The Christmas holiday was a chance to get some extra work done.
Please enjoy yourself. That's what
excuse me, Mr. Fozziwig.
Excuse me.
Sir, I've been going over the accounts. Do you know how much the firm is spending for this party?
Master Scrooge, this is Christmas. It's a time for generosity. Stop working. Enjoy yourself. Go meet some people. Go ahead.
Strictly speaking, this is not exactly what classic Scrooge is about. But still, it fits him perfectly, and I think this should have been included in the book as well. Now, I just showed you the clip of Scrooge at school. In the book, he stays at the school as well, but we're never actually told why. It is suggested through dialogue that Scrooge's father doesn't want him around, and so little Scrooge is left alone at Christmas. This, to me, is likely part of the reason why he dislikes Christmas. In the movie, he stays behind because he doesn't care about Christmas and uses it as a chance to catch up on some work. Again, it leans slightly more towards that simplistic, cartoonish version of Scrooge, and incidentally, what kind of child would rather have schoolwork than Christmas? Now, as for the Fezziwig, or rather Fozziwig Christmas party, the Fezziwig Christmas party was a humble but highly enjoyable affair. It was about Scrooge seeing how he didn't always hate Christmas, how you don't have to be rich or spend a lot of money to enjoy yourself, and see the kindness of Fezziwig in not making his employees work so hard, and how far a kind gesture like that can go. Little of that is at the Fozziwig Christmas party. It's clearly shown that a lot of money was spent on the party, and Scrooge is not enjoying himself at all. And of course, the final part of the Christmas Past section, the scene where Belle, the love of Ebenezer's life, walks out and he does nothing to stop her.
Another year before our wedding, Ebenezer.
But it can't be helped, Belle. How could we marry now? There's not even enough for a decent home. The investments haven't grown as they should.
So you said last year?
Business continues to be poor.
You're a partner in your own firm now.
Barely clearing expenses.
You said the partnership was the goal.
This is for you. I love you, Belle.
You did once.
I already mentioned that, in the book, this is perhaps one of the most characterizing parts. It is clearly shown that Scrooge has become so obsessed with money that he has little or no interest in her. It is by this point that Ebenezer Scrooge is clearly on his way to becoming a miser. In the movie, however, young Ebenezer is still in love with Belle by this point. In fact, the only reason they aren't married is because he's worried they haven't got enough money to live on. While it's still a moving scene, Scrooge is nowhere near as cold and miserly as he is in the book. You know, come to think of it, the whole point of this Christmas Past section was to show how Scrooge, how he used to be different, how he once loved Christmas and then changed for the worse, to the point when he chose money over love. In the film, however, it appears that he's always been a workaholic who was concerned with finances. Instead of going from good to bad throughout the section, he stays at a constant medium level.
Come in and know me better, man. Did I already say that?
And now, on to the Ghost of Christmas Present section. Let me first say that I love the puppet they made for this scene, particularly the way his beard flows as he talks.
Did I tell you that I am the ghost of Christmas Present?
You did, yeah.
Come in and know me better, man.
You're a little absent-minded spirit.
No, I'm a large absent-minded spirit.
Now, a large part of this section of the story is showing how much good Christmas can do for people, even when they have little money, contrary to Scrooge's thinking. In the book, it's done by taking Scrooge through a tour of the poor and humble people's homes. In the film, they do it as a musical montage. The montage certainly speeds things up, and the song lets you feel what is in the meaning of the scene. But still, you have to wonder how much Scrooge can learn by simply walking around the streets. But again, it's the movie. You have to cut corners somewhere.
It only seems right that I should lift a glass to my employer. I give you Mr. Scrooge, the founder of the feast.
The founder of the feast, indeed.
Now in the book, Bob Cratchit just says, "To Mr. Scrooge, the founder of the feast." I think the movie did a better job here. You see, they explain how he calls him the founder of the feast because he gives him employment. I'm not sure if people would understand what Mr. Cratchit was talking about otherwise.
Oh, no! Ah, we shall go out into the world.
As for the Ghost of Christmas Present, in the movie he's nothing but warm-hearted at all times, and that's all well and good. In the book, however, he also displays a certain amount of disdain for Scrooge, for being so cold-hearted and shutting out the needy. They also cut out the part at the end, where he opens his robes and reveals two children representing ignorance and want, who cling to him for protection. This thing was completely cut out of the film altogether. It could be they left it out because they didn't have enough time. Or perhaps the parents wouldn't appreciate the idea of a strange man hiding two children inside his robes.
Well, I'm usually trustworthy.
Oh! Am I in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come?
This, to me, is a very positive feature for the Muppets Christmas Carol. This is one of the very few cases in when they actually get the ghost of Christmas yet to come looking right. He is described in the book as a tall, mysterious figure, hooded and cloaked. And that is exactly what we're given here. Almost every other production seems determined to confuse him with the Grim Reaper.
Can you tell me, will that poor boy live? I cannot bear it.
Oh, my. Oh, spirit. Am I in the presence of the of the ghost of Christmas yet to come?
And frankly, I can't stand that. Some people might say that the ghost of Christmas yet to come is the Grim Reaper, but he's not. There's nothing at all in the book that suggests even such a thing. But he shows Scrooge's own grave, some of you may say. But that doesn't mean he's the Grim Reaper. I mean, in Back to the Future Part 3, Marty McFly shows Doc his own grave. Does that mean Marty is the Grim Reaper?
So, back from the House of Sadness, I see.
Sad that he didn't die years ago, the old skinflint.
Well, let me see. What do you got for old Joe, eh? What do you got for me to remember him by?
Joe, get off.
Well, I got these collar buttons from his dresser. Mother of pearl.
No. I got his bed curtains. Very fine damask.
Very cheap damask, but worth a few coins.
No, I've got his blankets.
His blankets.
This is an important scene. It shows that whoever the dead man is, people think so little of him that they don't mind helping themselves to his possessions. In the book, they even go as far as to steal the curtains from his deathbed and the shirt from his dead body, saying it would have been wasted on him. In the movie, there's a lot less of that here. I'm guessing maybe the writers thought it was too much for a children's movie. But in doing so, I feel it has a lot less impact. Incidentally, when I first saw this, I had no idea these people were stealing from the dead man, so that says something about the clarity of the scene. And of course, we have the climactic scene when Scrooge discovered that he is the man everyone is talking about. Now in the book, Scrooge is completely oblivious to this fact. He has absolutely no idea until he's actually standing before his grave. In the film, however, he already came to this conclusion by then. This is different from the book, but I think it's a positive difference. Take a look at this.
No, I don't know much about it either way. I only know he's dead. Yeah. When? Last night, I believe.
Now, when I first saw that film when I was little, I knew instantly that they were talking about Ebenezer Scrooge. I mean, who else would they be talking about? Would the ghost of Christmas yet to come take Scrooge into the future just to show him the fate of some other man? Now, Scrooge is no fool. In fact, in the book he is described as being sharp as a pin. And I find it hard to believe that someone as Scrooge's intelligence level could be so dense not to realize that those men were talking about him. He doesn't even suspect that he is the wretched man everyone keeps mentioning. When he does leave the thieves' den, in the book, he thinks that the point of this vision was that this mystery man in the story could be his own story. In the film, he says the same thing.
I understand, Spirit. The case of this unhappy man might be my own. My life tends that way now. Merciful heavens.
But if you listen to the tone of voice, it sounds like he's desperately trying to deny the truth that he suspects. And to me, that is an improvement. And one last thing. We all know the character Jacob Marley. The film took another departure from the book by adding a brother, Robert Marley.
In life, we were your partners, Jacob and Robert Marley.
But come on, it was to get Waldorf and Statler in. And so, in conclusion, I believe that this movie has successfully blended two franchises. It's got the story and messages of the book, even if it is abridged, and the musical comedy of the Muppets. It's managed to blend them both together without either half interfering with the other. It's not just the Muppets in Victorian costume, nor is it a Christmas Carol done with puppets. It truly is the Muppets Christmas Carol. And while certain darker elements of the book were omitted for the sake of the children viewers, they were still willing to go through with the tear-jerking moments that ultimately make the ending that much more joyful. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was episode 1 of this year's Christmas Carol Christmas Special. Join me for part 2 right here on Opinions from the Armchair.